Kate Daly Show, because all opinions matter. And George Soros will pay good money for them. The show starts now.
The special report that we planned to bring you tonight was about domestic politics, the battle among the Democrats. But we think the crisis in Iran is more urgent right now than the campaign here at home.
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
Short-term pay for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain, yes. We've got some long-term gain. Short-term spike for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain for American consumers. We may have to deal with that in the short term. Short-term and temporary.
Temporary short-term pain.
It's going to suck in the short term.
Some short-term pain.
Short-term pain. We have to focus on the short-term.
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 Short-term and long-term.
Short-term left.
Hopefully this is a short-term pain. Short-term is highly outweighed of the long-term benefits.
Some short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain.
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Well, that was interesting and telling. The media, love the media. You get a whole lot of people to say what you want. So welcome, Kate Daly Show, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So glad to have you. Every time I listen to the media clips where they're all saying the same thing, I'm like, I don't know how anyone in this day and age can actually think that the media is credible, but okay. I mean, I guess people will and people do. I just can't even imagine at this point. But Mel Madison joins me today. How are you, Mel?
Oh, I'm doing great. We're just, going through some short-term pain right now for long-term gain, Kate.
Hey, that got no worries. One guy did switch it up. He did say sacrifice.
Yes, a little sacrifice.
So good for him. Put his own spin on it. Boy, you could tell they were given the line and then having such a hard time repeating it, And it was so eye-opening. It's like the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. It's like I don't know. Yeah. I can't fathom people can actually believe the media, but okay. So I would love to get your take on this. And I also, by the way, Erica Kirk took Charlie Kirk's appointment to the Air Force Academy Board because, she has so much time. She's grieving and she's a widow and she has 2 little kids, but she's also running Turning Point. So what better thing to do than give her an appointment in government? So that's very telling, very telling to all the shows we've done. And then also, well, there's just a lot. So I have some clips to play on Lindsey Graham, one on even Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck talks about the insurance through the straits. And so let me get your take on when you heard that what had happened with Iran.
Yeah, I mean, just about the short-term gain or the insurance. I mean, it's really ridiculous. I mean, everything that anybody says, the propaganda. I mean, now you had today, they're explaining what Trump means by unconditional surrender. He can say anything he wants, and then they'll just redefine it to anything else. It has nothing to do with reality or traditional definitions. Now they're saying that unconditional surrender simply means whenever Trump says they're done. That's the definition. And so they're playing all of these games. I think it's really obvious to everybody. I mean, I think that the corporate media, owned by the Israeli Jewish billionaires, of course, is going to keep the propaganda machine going, whether it's Fox or CNN or whoever it is. But I mean, you see these moments when Trump is trying to say, it was Iran that bombed the school and Pete Hegseth's behind him on the plane. I mean, you can't even hide it. It's worse than a bad sitcom of how ridiculous it is. But yet the mainstream media has to go along with it. It is the same thing as Pravda in the Soviet Union. It's no different. If anything, it's a little bit worse because I think at least 90% probably of the Soviet population realized that. And I think, unfortunately, there's still a chunk of the U.S. population that doesn't realize that and thinks that CBS and Fox and CNN are feeding them the truth. Everything is a lie. The second they said, we're going to put insurance out and the ships are going to go, anybody realize it has nothing to do with insurance. I mean, they're all saying it has to do with insurance. It doesn't. It has to do with the fact that they're worried they're going to get blown up if they go through there, and we haven't been able to secure it. And a Navy escort is only going to put a naval vessel as a target, which if it gets struck and hit and 50 sailors die, it's just a recipe for even more escalation. If it was really possible for us to make that strait safe right now, we would be doing it. Trump would be calling in the shipping CEOs. He would be saying, here's what we've done. Here's our satellite intel maps. We've neutralized every opportunity Iran has. We guarantee you this is safe. Here's the evidence. Now move through it, and there'd be ships moving through it. The ships aren't moving through it because we can't make it safe. That's why it's not because of insurance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to take a step back, go ahead. But
no, we just funded in the insurance, but it's not.
We'll provide insurance, but it's useless unless it's safe. It's got to be safe. It's got to be safe.
We provided $20 billion in government insurance, but here's I'll play a clip of Glenn Beck. This is Glenn Beck describing the insurance issue. Here we go.
Bill right now, it's pricing risk. Insurance companies have said, nope, too big of a risk. I'm not insuring all of that oil and that ship. So Donald Trump is looking at some like 1980s Ronald Reagan style solution here. He's saying we're going to escort the tankers with our Navy. The insurance risk will collapse overnight. And if not, then you know what? We'll back the insurance. If Iran is neutralized, this is the big win. The scenario completely changes because the risk changes. The price of oil right now pays between $20 and $40 per barrel in risk alone because of that 21-mile stretch right there with Iran. If the United States would get back to a World War II position where we controlled the Straits of Hormuz, oil could be as low as $20 a barrel. You know what $20, you know what $40, you know what $60 a barrel does to Russia? Russia collapses. Risk disappears. Insurance drops, shipping cost falls, China loses their leverage. It's a good scenario. We just have to make it through there. And you either trust that our Navy can control that 21-mile strait or not. Donald Trump is betting we can control that 21-mile strait. It's just going to take us some time, but we can control it.
So this is why I play this only because this is why they're all parroting the short-term, pain. Right. Little mantra. And so everything takes time and we just can't control that. Now, remember, we're the ones that attacked. So there's that. Well, we followed suit from Israel. But anyway, the fact that so they're all laying out the same cause. They're all laying out the same thing. And it's all about the insurance. We can't get insurance. Now, they've done this with the Department of gobbledygook. I can't remember what department is doing this, but in fact, I have it somewhere. So they're doing it, but the issue is that it isn't making. It's not. Like you said, it's not going to make this huge difference, right? 20% of our oil of the world goes through the strait, so it's not 100%. It's the 20%, but they're still going to act. They're still going to. So if I was going to describe this, I would say this is the reasoning for our economy, so that they have a reason, a scapegoat for the economy staying high, right? Because we're not doing anything. I mean, you have
the
to have
oil, like you said, there's 20% of it that goes through there. And the people that are really most at risk, despite the saying that it's China, is it's actually our allies, in Asia, South Korea and Japan in particular. And the reason for that is that they do not have the stockpiles that China has. So since Biden pulled down our strategic reserve, like the U.S. is now left with 400 million barrels.
Yeah.
China has over 1 billion barrels of oil in stockpile. China has more than enough oil to go for months without a drop from the Strait of Hormuz, during which time the economies, the fourth largest economy in the world, which is Japan, would collapse, South Korea would collapse. So if this stays closed, what it's going to do is it's going to collapse our two main allies in Asia, while China keeps going as business as usual with their billion-plus barrels of oil in reserve.
Mhm.
That China understands this. This is why there's so many electric vehicles in China. It's not because they're concerned about the environment. They understand what their vulnerability is. Their main vulnerability is they need outside energy. They're working like crazy to do electric, to do coal, to do EV vehicles, not because they care about the Green Party, because they know this is it, and they've prepared for it. And they have the largest stockpile of oil in the world. And they can outlast anybody in Asia as far as stockpiles. So this is not hurting China, as everybody says. Russia is now being allowed to sell their oil sanction-free at higher prices. So they're selling more oil at a higher price. So basically what we're doing is we're strengthening Russia and China's position right now. And we are hurting the US position, particularly in Asia, because what we're doing is we're weakening and we're threatening the economies of our largest allies, Japan and South Korea. So all of the spin, basically you just have to look at what they say and think the opposite, and then you have a grip on reality, because anything they tell you is absolutely false. This is the best news China and Russia have seen in a long time. They're happy.
Right.
They're watching the US get involved in another foreign war. China's got more than enough oil to outlast all of our allies in Asia. Russia's being able to sell oil at higher prices, while the US is using its munitions in Iran, and now it can't send them to Ukraine. And here's the thing is, I will grant you, like, there's a way to like walk back from this, possibly. Like, I'm hoping that some sort of sanity just has Trump declare victory, and hopefully Iran says, you know what, we don't want to prolong this anymore, because basically they have been weakened, right? They have had their navy destroyed. They have had a lot of infrastructure destroyed. And the US is crazy enough to do more, to get rid of their desalination, to get rid of their electricity. And so hopefully there's some willingness on Iran's part to accept it if the US backs away. But the thing is that it's only going to have made matters worse. The only way this works out in the wet dream of all of these neocons is if we somehow get a Delcy Rodriguez in there. You know, like if we somehow get, you know, a greedy IRGC commander who takes over from the Ayatollah's son and basically becomes a US puppet. If that does happen, like, okay, that might be a little bit of short-term pain for long-term gain, possibly. But nobody's seeing that happen. I'm guessing that's probably a 5% chance or less. So we're in running your foreign policy on a 5% miracle hope, when the downside risk is on the extreme end, World War III, and probably the most likely base case scenario is that we're going to back out of this in a week or two, when our allies in Asia can't handle it anymore, when the US's internal politics start to catch up with this, and people start saying, hey, we thought this was going to be a few days. Hey, we thought it was going to be 1 week or 2 weeks.
2 weeks to flatten Iran. 2 weeks.
And so what's going to happen is we're going to leave. We're going to be left with probably a same or similar regime, maybe a little bit more hard line now, that has learned a lesson that they probably need to get a nuclear bomb, that probably will still wind up having this 400 kilograms of enriched uranium, and it's probably hidden in different parts all over the country. So they'll, you know, be able to fashion a dirty bomb and, you know, whenever they want or something. So it's just going to make things worse. And there's no real way for this to work out as a success, like I said, without, and I try to be fair in my analysis, that like we need some sort of a miracle of basically a bloodthirsty, psychopathic general with no principles who just wants to have villas in Tuscany, you know, take over somehow, and we send him billions of dollars so he can basically become the richest man in Iran, and he does our bidding. If that happens, then maybe there's some salvation here, but I just don't see that happening. There's no sign of that happening. And I think right now that's what Trump is hoping happens, but it's just not happening. And he's obviously looking for a way out. He wants this war to be over, but Iran doesn't want it to be over, and Israel doesn't want it to be over, and the deep state doesn't want it to be over. And that's really how I think he got himself into this mess, is the deep state of the United States combined with Israel and Bibi Netanyahu talked him into it. They told him, you send troops there, they'll back away. They didn't back down. Okay, we do a little bombing and there'll be a popular uprising, and in a few days it'll be all over, just like Venezuela. That didn't happen. So all these things that he was hoping were going to happen, they're not happening. And now he wants to get out of this. He's calling Putin, trying to figure out how to get out of it. He's he's doing everything publicly. He's acting tough, but obviously behind the scenes, you had Witkoff today on TV saying he's willing to talk to the Iranians. Very big difference of willing to talk from declaring unconditional surrender demands on his Truth Social. So behind the scenes, he wants to get out of this. He wants this to be over. He wants to declare victory. And it's just a really bad situation that could get a lot worse. So I'm just hoping that somehow he manages to get out of this, with a declared victory, and we move on. But unfortunately, each day we're there, each hour we're there, there's a greater likelihood that Iran gets a lucky shot in, or takes out a U.S. ship, or sinks a oil tanker, and the Persian Gulf is full of oil, and it escalates. And then one thing leads to another, and it's just like Iraq, it's just like Afghanistan, it's just like Vietnam, and we're sitting here in 2030 still in Iran.
Yeah. So what about our oil over here? What about our reserves over here? I know in the 70s, they really tried in the two, like 1973 and 79 when we put in Khomeini, by the way, the CIA put in Khomeini. So when that happened, we also had that, the same oil crisis, but a lot of people were debunking that at the time. And they were saying why even the Department of the Interior at the time was going around saying, wait a minute, that's not true. We have lots of oil over here. So we're talking, I think most Americans actually think all of our oil comes out of that strait, right? It all comes from Iran.
None does. It's 1% of U.S. oil. We produce more oil than we use.
Yeah. And so, so I know you didn't believe it when the weird excuses were given to go into Iran, right? And I look at, because I didn't believe it. Even Marco Rubio had a hard time selling it. And I'm not a fan of Marco Rubio. I'm so conservative, not a fan of Marco or Lindsey Graham or any of them. Lindsey Graham saying to everybody, send in your sons and daughters, fight for freedom. People are kind of over it. But, we've used Iran as this, and I played many media clips. Katie Couric, I played that media clip that I just played coming in that was from I think it was the 1980. And it's always Iran's going to get a nuke. Iran's going to get a nuke for a long time, like 45 years. And so what's your take on that? I'd love to know, because I think we want to look at him as the bad guy. I don't know.
Well, I do think that they have, flirted with nuclear weapons. And I do think it's true that they basically could have a nuclear weapon within a period of months, probably not a month or weeks, but probably 6 months to a year, given that they have admitted in various forums to having 60% enriched uranium. Needing to get it to 90% to weapons grade does not take that long. Creating the delivery mechanism, the bomb, even if it would be like primitive World War II style, probably is something they're capable of. So they have constantly been there, but I think they've constantly used that as negotiating leverage to try to extract things from the West. And, there's no doubt they've been a pain in the butt. I mean, I'm not trying to sit here and defend the Iranian regime or say that's a great situation having those guys in charge over there. That's why I said it would be better to have some sort of a puppet strongman in charge that would bend to the U.S. whim for money. So that's definitely an admirable goal. The thing is, you have to have a pathway to achieve that goal. And I think that the assumption was that once the bombing started, we'd be able to do it for a few days, maybe pause the bombing and give the population an opportunity to rise up. And we're just not seeing that. And there's there's some evidence that even the protests that were happening
Mm-hmm.
back in January were really motivated, by the state of the economy, which is in a horrible state because of U.S. sanctions. And it wasn't so much of a big problem with the regime as it was with the economy. And now by killing the Ayatollah and the schoolgirl incident and all of this other stuff, you're actually probably uniting the population more than you are causing it, to want to rise up, as many people have said. And I agree with that. So you're really you don't see this pathway to victory. There's where to a real victory, which is a real regime change, not the same regime in charge with different people in charge, but the same ideology, the same modus operandi, and basically nothing changes. Now you'll say, but Mel, we did change. We got rid of their missiles. We got rid of their Navy. Those are good, but that's also just a temporary fix. That's not something that cannot be rebuilt. Will it be rebuilt in 6 months? No. Will it take 4 or 5 years to get all the way back? Probably. But in the grand scheme of things, 4 or 5 years isn't that long of a time. And what are we going to be doing in 4 or 5 years if are we going to do this all over again? I think the real goal is to have a real regime change. And that's what I don't see as happening. Could we basically put them out of commission for even 4 or 5? It's not even going to take that long, 2 or 3 years before they get a bunch of missiles. And if they do, build continue their weapons program inside of mountains instead of just under bunkers, but deeper inside. And, we have in Colorado, we have bunkers that, supposedly even with the biggest Soviet hydrogen bombs would survive. So there are ways using mountains to produce bunkers that bunker busters, even nuclear weapons, are not going to destroy. So, are we just going to drive them to that situation, create more animosity, and at the same time, we're helping out Russia, and we're also destroying our allies in the Middle East, the Qatars, the Bahrains, all of these places that were kind of leaning towards the US and wanted to be on our side for AI. And, they work with us, they let us have bases, they sell us their oil, they kind of are puppets. But now we're messing up all their plans. I mean, Abu Dhabi, these were all supposed to be the new London, the new financial headquarters of the world. Well, now the drones are flying into the Burj Hotel in Abu Dhabi. I mean, that's not exactly where billionaires want to go on their vacations anymore. So we're ruining everything. I mean, we're just screwing up everything. And the only people we're helping are Russia and China. I mean, I don't see any other way to explain it.
Why do you think Israel attacked? Why the timing?
Well, this is Israel's dream. This is Israel wants to be the Middle East hegemon. They were, and they don't want to lose that, right? I mean, there was that 7-day war or whatever in the 70s when basically almost all the Arab countries, Egypt, they all attacked and Israel wiped them out. It was very embarrassing for Arabs in the Middle East that were participating in that. And that one was Arabs, not the Persians in Iran. And so Israel wants to be the big boss in the Middle East. They're the only ones with nuclear weapons. And they know that if Iran gets nuclear weapons, Saudi Arabia has already said they're going to want nuclear weapons. And now you're going to have a number of countries in the region with nuclear weapons. And so from Israel's perspective, I can see the rationale for this. But that's not the United States perspective. And that's the problem is that the United States is carrying out something that makes sense on Israel's behalf and absolutely makes no sense on the United States behalf. There are elements in the U.S. deep state, the Neocon wing, the New American Century wing, the descendants of the Dick Cheneys of the world that do want this to happen. Condoleezza Rice has been in the White House recently. There is a group of people out there who believe that we can get a regime friendly to the U.S. and Iran that is then essentially going to make the Middle East this bastion of safety and give us a stranglehold on world energy supplies. And if you include the United States and Venezuela and the Middle East, that is indeed what you wind up with. The problem is that, as I said before, where is the path to achieve this? And I think, I hope I'm wrong. I hope we achieve it. I hope that 5% chance I laid out, that some puppet takes charge, or even better, the obvious best case situation, some democratic popular uprising occurs. I'm just not hopeful that's what's gonna happen. And I think taking these risks on a 5 or 10% chance that that's the outcome, when the 80 to 90% chance is basically just making things worse, that this has been a very bad calculus. And in the first couple of days, because I had no idea when Trump was massing troops in Venezuela, I thought there's no way that anything could work out in this. It worked out semi-okay. The first couple of days of this, I was like, maybe I don't know what I don't know. Maybe they've got an inside guy in Iran ready to take over, a Delcy Rodriguez type figure, and this is going to take 2 days. It's become obvious that's not the situation. And once that's become obvious, I think you're seeing it also in, markets. So on Monday, after the stock market opened, not this Monday, but last Monday, the stock market actually closed up, thinking this is going to be like another Venezuela type situation, in and out.
Right.
And you've seen this week a lot more volatility. You've seen a lot more volatility in oil. The market was up at the beginning of the day today. I think we closed. Yeah, we closed down today. And I think it's just the beginning. And I think that, unless he gets us out of here in like the next week or two, this is likely to lead to a global recession because of high oil prices, inflation, a Democrat socialist landslide in the midterms, likely leading to a Democrat socialist president. And essentially, we will have a socialist open border country by 2029 if he doesn't figure us a way out of this quick.
So let me go back for just a second, because there's a couple things. Number one, I wanted you to comment on BlackRock kind of halting people from taking money out, but so we'll circle back to that. But do you think it's plausible that that we control already who's in Iran, that we controlled the Shah, that we controlled the coup, that we controlled Khomeini? I've read a lot on how we did that, and we did a campaign against the Shah to put Khomeini in, even knowing Khomeini would be tyrannical. So setting them up as maybe the perpetual enemy. So I kind of wonder if this wouldn't go on and on because of the fact that you have Saudi Arabia just meeting with Trump in November, okay? And they were talking about investment deals and a lot of money exchanging. And Saudi Arabia and Iran are like competitors. So I wonder if that does benefit Saudi Arabia, and if those deals are being made, if a lot of this could be about Saudi Arabia too, the money coming forward from Saudi Arabia. But it's just kind of interesting. I've wondered if we actually do have controlled what happens in Iran, only because it's been the constant news report for 45 years. So that usually tells me that something's a little wrong there, and that when we lost the Strait of Hormuz, that happened in the late 70s when Khomeini went in, and we had the Brits decided to make some secret agreements with Iran, and then just sort of dropped out as the control mechanism for the Strait, which would then let Iran, right, in the theater of war, control the Strait, right? So kind of interesting, because I don't know how or why that would happen, other than maybe there's significant gain over 45 years to use that as a boogeyman. What do you think of everything I just said?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it does. Obviously, it does have it's all about, oil. I think at the end of the day, for the U.S. deep state. So I think for Israel and Bibi Netanyahu, it's about, Israeli security and being the Middle East hegemon. For the neocons and the deep state in the U.S., although they're also in the back pocket of Israel, the way they see this making sense from a U.S. perspective is controlling energy. And so if you really have to go back to when oil was first discovered in the region and understand that essentially, like Sykes-Picot, the World War I agreement that divided up all these countries, essentially the Arab countries were given or it was decided that they would be puppets of the French and the British.
Mhm.
And eventually that became the Americans. And so the Arab countries, and for the most part, they still are. Iran was a different case. And it was because of the size of Iran and the location of Iran. And it was deemed after World War I, actually, that it was not really easy for the British to control Iran, and that they wanted help from the Soviet Union. And so Iran was actually divided up, where the northern part of Iran, which is where Tehran is, was supposed to be under Soviet influence. And then the southern part along the Persian Gulf, where the oil was going to come out, was going to be under British BP, British Petroleum Company, and the British Empire. And so Iran has always been a little bit of a sticky situation, and I mean, it bordered the Soviet Union, a land border. Those republics that it borders in the north are now independent, but they used to be part of the Soviet Union. And also, even to this day, you can go by boat from Russia to Iran directly through the Caspian Sea. So this has always been a thorny side that doesn't play ball the way that the Arab side does. And this is what the neocons have always wanted to control Iran, but yet there's been this problem from the very beginning. So I don't know a lot of the details about if or how the CIA might have wanted the Ayatollah in there. I would say that creating some sort of a, yin to the Saudi Arabian yang type of a situation, I can see how that makes sense, and wanting there to be some sort of a counterbalance that they could play off of each other.
Right.
And I think that's what they've been doing.
Saudi Arabia does about 10 to 11 million barrels a day, and Iran is about 3 to 5. So 10 to 11 to 3 to 5. So significantly larger, but it might benefit Saudi Arabia, to
definitely.
Take
and
over.
I think the thing with the oil that people need to realize is like, okay, yes, in the 70s, we did not have the fracking. We didn't have the ability to get this shale oil. We now have that, and we are the world's largest producer, and we produce more barrels than we use. We do export some barrels and import some barrels because of the logistical locations of places. But at the end of the day, we do. But the thing is, and this is what the neocons realize, is that's very temporary, because we're tapping out of these shale wells. And all the easy shale, there's this one area called the Bakken that still has some easy shale oil. But a lot of the places where we've been, this massive increase in supply has come from since the 70s, those places are starting to go dry of the easy, cheap shale oil. And so the US realizes that it is probably not going to be the world's largest producer, 10, 20 years from now, and that we're going to tap some of this stuff dry. And that's the interest in Venezuela. And that's also, I think, part of the desire on controlling Iran. And they do feel that, with China, I mentioned they have a 1 billion plus barrel stockpile, but that in a very long or protracted conflict, like a World War III type conflict, if they could control the oil out of the Middle East, that would be very detrimental to China. China realizes this is a weak point, and that's why they have the big stockpile, but it definitely is. But here's the thing, if we ever got into that World War III and we wanted to, send missiles to the Strait of Hormuz and block it ourselves, we could do that regardless of who's in Iran. I mean, it's not like this is giving us some upper hand in a future conflict. I mean, we're going to have the same opportunity, and eventually, the Chinese Navy is going to get better. So yeah, like we could be kind of them, if we somehow got a puppet in Iran, we could somehow be the masters of the Strait of Hormuz right now. But to shut that down on China would essentially be an act of war, which would mean we're going into like World War III, which would basically just, if we were in that type of a situation, whatever we would, it doesn't matter if we control it during peacetime. If we control it during peacetime, I mean, who cares? And so there's not really a lot of great, like I said, great rationale for this. And given the low chances of this favorable outcome, that's why it just doesn't make sense to me. And I think it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And I think it's not making sense to Trump right now and he's trying to figure out a way out of it. And that's my best case scenario is in a matter of days or 1 or 2 weeks. He's just going to say, they don't have the missile threat anymore. They don't have a Navy anymore. And we get out of there. I only hope and pray that during this 2-week period, something doesn't happen to cause escalation. And that could be a missile getting a real, like, perfect kill shot at a base of the US and taking out 50 airmen or soldiers, or taking out a naval vessel, or taking out an oil tanker and causing a disaster, or a direct hit on like a school or something in Tel Aviv, killing 2,000 Israelis, that then makes the US-Israeli side say, we need to send in ground troops. And that's the way I think we're playing with fire right now. Right now, it's kind of a contained air bombardment, and we'll get through this oil thing. And, you know, if he declares victory and we get out of there, it was a dumb, stupid decision, but it's not the end of the world. But if the risk we're making right now is for not much gain, as far as I can see, we're risking that this escalates, turns into a ground war, and then we're back in, you know, another Vietnam type situation.
Russian theater.
Yeah, it's a low risk. They're describing this as like high risk, high reward. I see it as like high risk, low reward type move.
Interesting. So Damien has a comment on YouTube. This isn't about the oil. Get your heads out of your butts. It's about controlling the banking system in oil-rich countries. Look, I would argue that we actually have had control over Iran, but we use them as controlled opposition. So I would imagine that if we can do that, and if I'm right about that, then the banking system isn't going to matter as much, because we do control what happens there. And I actually do think we control a lot more of North Korea than is said. But that's just me. And I could be wrong. But all I'm saying is I know that people are set on it's all about the banking system. Yeah, it always goes back to money. And they are utilizing this for inflationary scapegoats, right? So hey, sorry guys, we can't help the economy. We can't do anything about the economy. The economy is you're going to just continuously keep getting screwed because now it's this. That's kind of what I think is part of this too. It kind of lays down a really good, I don't know, good avenue, I guess, a good scapegoat for them to say this. And I'm very conservative. I want to know all those lefties that are coming into this conversation. I'm more conservative than the conservatives. So, and I am not all about war. I'm not a neocon, and I don't know that I've ever been a true neocon, but I'm extremely conservative. And I just look at government as a whole of two wings of the same bird, okay? Because they're going to take their marching orders from the deep state, right? So when I'm looking at this situation, I think it might go on longer just to have that scapegoat. But as far as the economy over here too, but it's interesting because when they were talking about, well, the Iran revolutionaries, which is about 125 to 150,000 at the most, they're going to start, attacking and stuff. And I was thinking back to how many times they've actually done that. And it's hard to get any numbers because they aren't usually attacking, ships. And you talked about peacetime, and I'm like, that's not like a usual thing. So that's why I'm still kind of hung up on the attack. And I know that Rubio came out, and I'm not a fan of Rubio. I think he's complete deep state, and he's so controlled. He's got quite the past. Anyway, wink, wink. So he is out there trying to sell it that, well, we knew they were going to attack us, and so we had to attack first. Yet you don't have any, we don't have any actual evidence that anyone's put forward about that, which is very weird. So I think people should probably question that a little bit more too, because they weren't out there attacking ships or anything. Nothing. As far as the timing goes, why in the world now? As far as what you see in banking and what you see, because you're a finance guy, what you see going on in the world, and everything does go back to money. So what do you think about the timing of it?
Yeah. Well, the timing, I think two things. I mean, one on timing and one just really quick too on the banking system, because I would agree the banking system the kind of world financial mechanics of the world financial plumbing, in a way, are all behind this too, and the petrodollar and oil. And I think there's not really a difference between the banking system, the U.S. dollar as reserve, and oil. They're all kind of one and the same thing. And a lot of people say, well, the U.S. dollar, you know, it used to be backed by gold, which it did. That was taken away in the 1930s by FDR. Nixon made it official, but it was really FDR who did this. And we never had a true gold standard since then. You could never, you know, take your dollars and get gold from the Federal Reserve after FDR. And so, you know, we had what we called a gold exchange standard, where other countries could take their currency, and that fell apart. And then we had the dollar, and a lot of people, they say it's fiat, and they say, well, what backs it? And a lot of people will say, well, it's backed by the military, or it's backed by. What's really backed the dollar has been oil, because what the oil producers have been willing to do is to sell oil for dollars and for treasury bonds.
It's like the benchmark, is what you're saying.
Yeah. As long as they're willing to sell their oil for dollars, then really what's backing the dollar is oil. And yes, that's part of it, is that grip has been going away. Iran has been selling oil to China in yuan, not in dollars. And then they've been, you know, making up the difference in gold. And that's why gold is at 5,200. That's why gold is going to 6,000, 7,000. I mean, gold is coming back as the center of the monetary system, and that's falling away. And that's part of what they're trying to forestall. And they want to, you know, keep the petrodollar, US dollar reserve status system kind of running. But I mean, to me, that's a lost battle. That's gone. It's never coming back. You could take over Iran, but it's not going to change anything in that regard, in my opinion. These countries are already moving away from holding treasuries on their central banks. They still have a lot of them, but they're kind of legacy treasuries. Gold is now a larger percentage of the reserves of central banks around the world than treasuries.
You nailed gold. It's almost 5,200. You nailed it. And everyone was like, no, there's no way Mel could be right on that. And I'm like, you nailed it. You predicted that very correctly.
Well, I was saying 5,000 when it was 2,500, and I'll say that was a double, and I'll say it's going to double from here. I mean, it's going to go to 10,000 probably in the next 2 to 3 years. It's probably going to be 6,000 by the summer. Because a lot of people too, just on gold really quickly, because gold shot up on news of the attack, and then it hasn't gotten back as high as it was on the night that the attack was, you know, the Sunday after the attack. And that's really because of the dollar. And that's because of two things. It's because of, number one, the dollar strengthened because there was a lot of people that had money in these Middle Eastern countries that had to send that somewhere, and they wanted to get it out of the currencies of Bahrain or Saudi Arabia or Qatar. And so they bought the dollar. That strengthened the dollar. That's a very temporary kind of one-time move. When the dollar strengthens like that, that's negative for gold. And the other reason why is with the stock market tumbling down, gold had become such a hot trade, a momentum trade, that a lot of hedge funds and kind of short-term weak hands had bought a lot of gold, and they needed to deleverage and take out risk. And so they had to sell. So gold should be probably 6,000 off of this news, just on the news. But the market mechanics of money moving from the Middle East into the dollar, it's also why Bitcoin is up on this. People moving money into Bitcoin. That's actually been doing fairly well this week. And I think it's a lot of Middle Eastern money going into crypto. And so you've had money moving into the dollar, moving into Bitcoin. You've had some money moving into gold, but not as much as has been coming out of gold because of all of these hedge funds and Western financial institutions that needed to, they operate on, you know, different things like risk models. And when certain things happen, like when volatility goes up in the stock market, their models tell them you need to take down risk. And that means they need to sell out of positions, whether they want to or not. And a lot of them have held gold. And so there's been this kind of forced selling or quasi forced selling of gold. I think gold that's just giving people an opportunity, you know, to get in before, because once this temporary dust settles and the dollar resumes its downward trend, and the hot money from the Middle East stops moving into the dollar, and the hot money stops coming out of gold, which is going to happen pretty soon, whether the war ends soon or not, that's going to happen. Once that happens and all the portfolios are repositioned, regardless of how the war goes, then gold's going to start, I think, creeping up to new highs. It's only about $400 away from a new high right now. And I think it'll be back there in the summer and beyond. So I think this is just giving people another opportunity to get in at, sub 6,000. And, by the end of the year, a lot of people will look back and say, oh, I should have bought gold when it was 5,200. But, that's my take on gold right now.
Okay. I know some of our listeners are making comments that we don't understand digital ID, digital currency. Yes, we do. We've talked about it endlessly on the show. So yeah, we get it. But it doesn't, we're not entering it into every single part of our conversation today, but yes, we understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, digital currency, that's already been, approved with the Genius Act and the stable coins. It's not going to be issued by the Federal Reserve. It's going to be issued by JP Morgan and Citibank. And then they're going to turn over all the data and the control to the government. And that's all part of the Genius Act. And that's really why the Clarity Act, which is the bill to regulate cryptocurrencies, is stalled, because the banks do not want to allow the crypto companies like Coinbase to be able to pay out interest, or rewards as it's called, on stable coins, because it threatens the banking cabal's monopoly on interest. And so, there are all these banking system ties to it all, but it's also all related. It's not separate. It's not like, oh, there's the currency and the banking system, and then there's oil and the Middle East, and they're two separate things. They're all part and parcel of the exact same global cabal. Bankers. It is heavily Jewish. That's not anti-Semitic. It's just a fact.
Yep.
And there's a lot of Israel connections and Israel lobby. And we have Kevin Warsh being appointed to the Fed chair. I mentioned the last time I was on that his father-in-law, the sole heir to the Estee Lauder fortune, is the president of the World Jewish Congress, which is an organization that is chaired by David the Rothschild. And so you have this direct link from the Rothschild banking clan to the nominee for the Federal Reserve chair. And so you have this outsourcing of the U.S. foreign and monetary policy to this Israeli Jewish banking based cabal. And I just, you also have the deep state involved in it. And there's Christians on that as well. And it's not just about the language. And there's also a lot of kind of non-Zionist Jews out there who don't believe in this madness as well. So it's not to be anti-Semitic or say that, but it's to just point out the fact that there is this heavily concentrated. It's much more than like a random sampling of the population that has these Israeli connections tied into the banking system that is also tied into all of this. And so this just, is a big rabbit hole. But at the end of the day, it does all feed back into money, and it does feed back into oil. And those two are not as separate as people think.
And agendas. There's lots of agendas going on, 2030 and everything else. And we've talked about that endlessly on the show. But yeah, it's all about agendas. And when I said the government, it doesn't matter who's in, it doesn't matter what side, all of this is going on. All the same things are pushing forward that are the big ticket items. We've said that many times on the show, but it's just how it works. It doesn't matter who's in. People get into their tribes, and it drives me nuts.
Yes. And I do think too that, just to be clear on this, is a lot of people, I think, it's very simplistic to just say Bibi and the Israel lobby talked Trump into this. I don't think that was enough. I think it was Bibi and the Israel lobby combined with the U.S. deep state. And I think there were people within the CIA, people within the Department of War that have been wanting something like this to happen for a long time for their own reasons. So I do think that it's very simple to just say, oh, well, this is just Trump got talked into it by Bibi Netanyahu and the Israel donors. That's a big part of this, but that's not the only reason this is happening.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That's not the only reason this is happening, in my opinion.
I think there is more at stake with us and Saudi Arabia and agreements being made too. There's like, when you say there's a lot more, there is a lot more. And then there's always the big pushing of the agendas as we just spoke about too. So it's interesting where wars are, where they're placed, and the timing of them. I'm always curious to see the timing of wars. Usually, and mostly when they escalate, and we all know that we have color revolutions that are inputted by the CIA, and we know the MEK. That's all assets. So over in Iran. So do they run their own controlled opposition over there? Yes, and and I think that our CIA is doing that. But as we've controlled the leaders of that for years and years and years. But it's just so fascinating how much is involved. So for all of you commenting, yes, there's many things that are being said right now on YouTube. They're all true. You have the New World Order behind this, pushing all of this. And so that's why you get an attack that doesn't make sense. And no one even questions it because
the globalist order that, that this is part of world domination to control all the energies supply. All of this wraps into the same kind of quagmire.
Right.
And the other thing that I think is, just kind of important to note on this is, while I do not think that the Israel agenda is the main driving force of it, that's definitely an important one. And even if Trump does, let's say, back out, who's to say that we can completely control Israel? Because they might want this war to continue, and they might continue it. And then you almost get the situation where what's the U.S. going to do? Send their ships home while Israel continues the attack? And so you do have a strong, Israeli influence on this thing. Maybe Trump would have ended it already, but he's probably being told by Israel and the deep state, look, we're close. We just need to do a few more things. We need to send in a few troops, just some special forces, seize that uranium, and then this will be over. Let's just hope that's, like something like that happens and they end it. But what if they send those troops in and something goes wrong and 12 Navy SEALs get killed and we don't get the uranium? And then it's like, oh, now we need to send in a regiment or a battalion or a division. So this is just kind of a big mess. And the other thing I'd add is just, although Trump is saying things very frankly, and it seems like this is a departure, this is actually really nothing different than what the United States has been doing for 250 years.
Right.
I mean, this can go all the way back to the founding fathers and the desires we had on the Caribbean. I mean, Cuba has been in the gun sights. You can read letters, from the 1700s of like Mattison and these guys talking about the Caribbean.
Right.
And I mean, in wanting Cuba. And the only reason they didn't take it was because they knew that Cuba would have become a slave state because of the population there. I mean, this was all, otherwise Cuba would have been, swallowed up a long time ago. So all of these things that we're doing are nothing new. Obviously you mentioned perhaps involvement putting in the Ayatollah. It's open knowledge that we put in the Shah and got rid of Mossadegh. So the U.S. has been trying to determine who runs Iran, since Iran had oil, basically. We didn't care about it before then. The U.S. has been trying to dominate the Caribbean and take over Cuba, since the founding of you go back before the founding, when we were colonies. You have Hamilton was from, the West Indies. These were important British, trading posts, sugar, all of this stuff that the U.S. wanted to fold in a long time ago. So none of this stuff is like new or a departure or some change in U.S. foreign policy. This is just U.S. foreign policy continuing to do the same type of things it's been doing for 250 years.
We work hand in hand with the Brits and, the Five Eyes, the Brits, Australia, New Zealand, us. Okay. So it's interesting that the Brits just gave up control of one of the most important channels in the world in the 1970s as we're having all of these 70s fake oil crisis going on. So, and I do think they were fake, and the Department of the Interior at the time even said they were fake, and then he got removed as Department of Interior. So I think, there's a lot more fakery going on, a lot more lying going on than anyone can even fathom. And that's why it doesn't matter who's in what side. People need to get off the sides. They need to, get off the tribal talk and basically understand the government has a drive to do what the deep state wants, and it's all controlled no matter who's in. So even as a conservative, I can honestly say that it's absolutely asinine to think that each tribe gets to do what they want, because I don't think they do. I think they're completely driven by the deep state. And a lot of that deep state, Israel has its own deep state, and a lot of people have a hard time even fathoming that, which it's incredulous at this point, just because I don't know how you couldn't think every government has its deep state. So and I'm saying this to everybody listening, not to you, Mel, because I know you know, but it's just insane how much the governments have been infiltrated since the dawn of time. So,
Yeah. And the military industrial complex, and all of these things. Yeah. And it's not just the weapons that we're going to have to buy, but now guess everybody's going to want to buy missile inceptors, and now the drone industry is going to take off like crazy, because the modern warfare is just all about drones these days. And so all of this is just creating massive industry, trillions upon trillions of dollars of defense spending around the world. And so there's all of these things connected. And it's just, just the last thing I'd say, just like, it's not going to surprise me that we could be doing a show in a month or two talking about Cuba, because that's been on their radar forever. The founders wanted Cuba. We had the Spanish-American War. Was we wanted Cuba, and when we were going to take Cuba, and there was the whole false flag Maine, remember the Maine down with Spain fiasco, there was a declared war there. And part of the Congress, when Congress actually did their job, was they said, okay, we're going to let this war happen, but we're not going to take over Cuba. That's why we took over Puerto Rico. We took over the Philippines. All of Spain's territories became U.S. territory. Except for Cuba, because that was actually in the war declaration that we couldn't. And so we put a puppet in there. And then when that puppet was gone, Kennedy was forced by the CIA and the deep state to send in military actors, on Cuba in the 60s. So all this stuff is just the same stuff. This keeps happening, over and over, whether it's Iran in the 50s or Cuba in the 60s. It never goes away, because it's part of the blueprint. It's part of the big grand plan that is like a world global domination, deep state, globalist, agenda of the way that, whether it's Council on Foreign Relations people or these neocon think tanks, the way these people think, and the banking cartels and the military industrial complex, because that's who benefits from all of this. The average American doesn't benefit from all of this stuff.
No.
But all of these people do. And that's why we head down these primrose paths so many times.
Well, we got a lot of talk when Trump went in this second time, and it was all about America first. And I just laugh, because it's everything else but America. And if anything, we just keep losing more liberty. We never gain it back. We never get even closer to the Constitution. We have a bought and sold Congress and Senate. They are completely bought. And so it's just amazing to me. Even the judges, it doesn't matter who we're talking about. It's like they'll do the bidding no matter what. And they'll continuously tell us in the media one thing, and they'll do the exact opposite. So it doesn't matter who's in, we get the same stuff, no matter Obama and Bush.
And forever, Kate. People say we've lost the American Republic. We never had an American Republic. That's the myth, that there was this mythical point in time when we were a true democratic republic, democracy.
For an hour?
No, not really. Not really, Kate. I'm not a big
catching their bets going in.
I don't buy it. Look, they didn't even want that to happen. It was never wanted to be a true democracy. That's the reason why the Senate was chosen from, by the governors and the state legislature, no direct voting for Senate and no direct voting for president. Nobody ever wanted a true democratic republic. What they wanted something where the wealthy white men could control everything without the wealthy white men fighting each other. And as long as that was the situation. And that was what they wanted. And that was what they had. They had that for a little while. where wealthy landed gentry white men could kind of get together in a smoke-filled room and decide the future of the country. We had that for a little while. But as far as something where you really had like the interests of the people somehow came through into the government policy and action.
Well, they did
through this natural thing.
It was supposed to be a republic, and
yeah, it was supposed to be a republic, and it was all by design. You know, it was all by design, though. But and I understand why too. I mean, there are good reasons why they didn't want the masses to just be able to vote, which is where we're heading. Like, you know, we're going to vote anybody in the top 52 percentile of wealth. We're just going to take their money, or, you know, or top 49%. I mean, in the other 50, like they didn't want these things to happen. They never wanted it to be a pure democracy. I completely agree with that. But even the nature of the republic, I think if you go back to, let's say, World War II, and you look at the machinations that happened that got us involved in that war, or you look at World War I, you know, Woodrow Wilson running on his campaign was he's not going to get into the war. And
you're talking about Morgan, Carnegie. You're talking about all the guys, those guys.
All this stuff, all this stuff has been happening basically since the founding. And even if you go to the Civil War and you look at the Northern industrial interests who did not want to have the cotton and the natural resources of the South taken away. And you had most of the people that fought and died in the Civil War did not own slaves because slaves were expensive. And it wasn't about slavery. It wasn't about states' rights. It was about the money and having that massive trading system combined. And so all of these things have been driving this. Really, the average Northerner
too. It was about states' rights because the South was pushing for states' rights too, and they wanted us to be the unified United States so that it could be controlled more federally. That's really when Abe Lincoln went in. That was basically one of the goals was to not have the states have their autonomy. So as well, right? So there was a little.
I mean, that's been taken away. There's the state's autonomy, the original idea. I mean, it's a very complicated, muddy picture, is I guess my point. And that to think that there was at one point this time when we really did have what I think the ideal and the goal is, which is essentially a government that serves the interests of the people,
owned by the people.
Owned by the people, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. That is still the goal, and that it's actually never been the reality.
And so you're, I know you have to go, but BlackRock shutting down anyone that wanted to take money out. Do you want to tell us about that?
Well, I think this is the larger problem that has me actually, you know, I'm always coming on here saying that stock market's going to be a little volatile, but in the end, they're going to, you know, print the more money and we're going to go up and don't worry about it. I have turned bearish on the stock market. I think that even if this Iran thing gets sorted out, we're definitely heading at least for like a 10% drop in the market. You know, something around like 6,200, 6,100 on the S&P 500, because I think there are these larger private credit problems. And that has to do with all this lending that went out. And I think that's going to probably start to hit us even more as we move into the summertime. And I think what's going to inevitably happen, even though he claims to not want to print money and do quantitative easing and these things, I think Kevin Warsh and the Federal Reserve are going to be forced once again to intervene in the financial system and print a lot more money. And that's going to be even more bullish for gold. And that will eventually get the stock market rolling again so that we could end up at the end of the year in a positive year. But I think we're heading for trouble, even if this Iran thing gets resolved in the stock markets, because I think the bigger story for markets is actually this private credit issue that is starting to rear its head at companies like BlackRock and KKR and Apollo. And basically what it is, for people that don't follow it, it's just after the financial crisis, it became harder for banks to lend money, and all these people started doing private credit. But what they really were doing was they were funds that would borrow money from the banks. So the banks would loan money to these funds, and then the funds would put it into risky investments.
One step out.
Yeah, that the banks weren't allowed to do. And some of these risky investments are starting to fall apart. It's not as big as the mortgage problem. I'm not anticipating a 2008 type situation, but I'm anticipating a 10, 15% stock market correction that brings in the Federal Reserve to intervene and once again start the printing presses going. So we got to be careful for that one.
Ouch. Ouch. All right. Thank you so much, Mel Madison. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
That was good. It's very, very interesting, wasn't it? So always appreciate Mel coming on. melmadison.com, Mattison, and then Quaz is the book. And, you know, I think we had probably a republic a little bit longer than Mel thinks, but were they coming in with their special interests and agendas and New World Order agenda? Yes. Even in the scriptures, and I'm a big scripture reader, you know, Christ's family had to get him out of Dodge, didn't they? And away from the government in order to save his life. So have we always been shown what government is capable of and who really is behind government? Yeah, I think we have. I think we've been shown that many, many times. And so that's why when people think that government is altruistic at all, or, oh, but this, you know, this government, you know, we have the right designs, all the designs are in the end something that takes away your liberty. So we've never marched the other way, right? We've always marched forward in taking of liberty. It's never, ever gone the other way for us. In fact, in the last 100 years, we haven't regained any liberty at all. Nothing that's been taken. So there's that. And Lindsey Graham saying, you know, send your sons and daughters. I think, you know, Lindsey Graham has a lot of secrets in the closet of his house. I think you got Ted Cruz out there, and I'm not fans of these guys. Okay, I'm very conservative, not fans of the neocons. So, you know, you put Mitt Romney in a bucket with Ted Cruz, with Lindsey Graham. All these guys are in for a reason, for the long haul, and they're not going to get removed out of office because they're doing the bidding, right? And so I look at this. I look at Ted Cruz out there just pushing for this war, right? And I'm sorry, who instigated the war? You have to ask yourself that. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Who instigated this? Come on. And it's a great distraction. Not only a distraction. So I shouldn't say it's a distraction, because when I say that, people go, well, that means that there's no point to it. No, there is a point to it. It's the furthering of an agenda. The greater Zion agenda from the 1940s was for Israel to gain a lot of territory in that part of the region. So that'll be interesting to see how this plays out as well. It'll be interesting to see how this affects Saudi Arabia and our deals with Saudi Arabia, since we were just dealing with him in November. So there's a lot of that going on too. And also and then Erica Kirk getting an appointment. Now, I don't focus on Erica Kirk because I don't think she is I wonder why sometimes all the focus is on her. I think that seems like a distraction. I don't think anything's right with Erica. I think Erica was probably Charlie's handler. But with that being said, I think her family's been in the government, and I think she's been in the government more than she's talked about. But with that being said, when all focus seems to be fighting over, in our conservative world, fighting over Erica and who she is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who Erica is at the end of the day, because it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is our liberty and the fact that no one's fighting for it, and what's going on also in this country with all of our NSA spying, with our cameras, with our systems that have been put into place. That's more important than Erica, because Erica just is kind of low on the totem pole, right? People like to make a big deal about Erica. I've talked about Erica on the show, and I've kind of laid out what my thoughts were, but I don't obsess over it because it's not as important as all the other things, right? But I did want to mention, number one, go get the ebook. It's at katetalks.myshopify.com. This is how to deal. I have to say the word deal because of the censors on YouTube. How to deal with cancer without chemo, and it's working. Go get the ebook. It's 14 pages dialed down to exactly what you need to know. Get this stored on your computer, because every time I post about it, I get censored. Okay. These are the things that I think people don't want you to know about solving cancer without chemo. Chemo has a 97% kill rate. Okay. If you're a doctor and you're saying chemo's all we got, there's a problem there, because it isn't. And And the doctors have been trained on everything but health. And so, yeah, my respect level goes way down. So, having a 97% death rate is not a great odds, So go get the ebook. It's 14 pages while you still can. It's $10. You guys, this information is gold and can probably save your life or the life of a loved one. So please, by all means, it's been completely updated. Go get it. It's at katetalks.myshopify.com. The link is on the bottom of the screen. katetalks.myshopify.com and get it before it's gone. Also, go get some Cardio Miracle, please, because it's really helping health. And I keep getting letters from all you guys, and I'm telling you that your letters are amazing about cardio and how it's affected your life. And I know a couple of my friends have been on Cardio Miracle for 4 or 5 years, and the results of their stamina, their health are amazing. It's amazing. It's 20 times the fruits and vegetables of anything out there, Cardio Miracle, and it tastes good. You just throw it in your water and drink it. It's amazing. So do 2 doses though, not 1. 2 doses was the key for having it work. I tried 1 and I was like, and then I tried 2 and I was like, oh, now I get it. So do 2 doses. But those are the 2 things, very important. And formulaiq.com for all of the supplements I take, including cod liver oil, which is so healthy. Kind of like our ancestors. Why do you think they took cod liver all the time? Think about that. Helped with thyroid, helped with everything. So go take cod liver oil and their beef liver IQ, which is amazing. And all of their supplements actually have ingredients that absorb into the body. So that's kind of amazing too. So go get that because we need all hands on deck. We need you healthy, especially those that can see the truth. Because I really can appreciate people that don't get into the tribes. They're not completely sold on every single thing we do from our CIA standpoint is the right thing to do, because it's never the right thing to do. Our CIA is pretty evil. And our CIA, Mossad, the German one, no one ever talks about. See, I don't even say their name because no one ever talks about the German Mossad, the German CIA. But all these CIAs work in conjunction with each other. And I am telling you, we're in trouble because they don't have any rules. They don't have any oversight, and no one in Congress or the Senate, no one is going to poke at them because they'll end up dead anyway. So not that, they're all bought anyway, but my point is that we have a severe problem and we're not really addressing it. So get out of the tribe so you can see clearly. It's like what Candace says, everything is fake and gay. That's very, very true. I hate saying that, but it's the truth. It is the truth. I mean, there's so much fakery that I can't even, sometimes I just want to scream. It's really hard to show people the fakery. They get so mired into, I got to have a hero and I gotta, everything this person does is perfect. And I'm like, are you kidding me with this? Look at the results of what's been going on. We can't, I don't know how people can say that anymore. So this isn't about sides. And for you lefties out there, this isn't a Trump hates thing either, because it's not about Trump. It's not about Trump. It's about everything else, okay? Everything that the deep state does and utilizes the presidency to do it. It is not about Trump. Get your mind out of Trump. It's the media and the brainwashing want you to either love him and think he does nothing wrong and admire him, or hate him. And that those 2 extremes don't work, because then you're not seeing the real picture. So please, if we have any hope for this country, it's the people that can see all the fakery. That's where my hope lies, is in the people that can see the fakery. Oh my gosh, it's bigger than Iran. Yes, Angel, it's bigger than Iran. Okay. It's way bigger because there's much bigger agendas going in. They're turning us into a region. They're going to oust our constitution in favor of international laws. We don't understand where we're going to land in this trap 5-10 years from now. And that's why I even do the show. That's why the show is important to me, is because at least we can get some traction in understanding how fake everything is. See, here's another comment from a lefty weirdo, right? Trump is the worst president we've ever had. Oh my gosh, you're not getting it. You're so blind. It isn't about the personality of the person that is president, okay? This is about the deep state controls the mechanism of president. It doesn't matter who's in. Okay? It's not that Trump is the worst, Biden's the worst, Bush is the worst, Obama's the worst. The deep state runs the presidency. They hide behind the presidency. All you have to do is kind of envision it like puppets and strings, and they're just moving the strings. It has zero to do with anything. They've controlled the presidency for 100 years. It has nothing to do with the personality of people. I always think people are as dumb as a brick when they just keep going after personality. Stop going after personality. It isn't about that. We got to see the truth more. Okay. There's so much fakery happening. I look at the congressmen and I look at the judges, the Senate. They're all puppets. They'll all do whatever they're asked to do. They're not standing for anybody. They're not going to do anything that actually returns any liberty, ever. Ever. I don't care if you're talking about your favorite one. They're not going to do a thing. It's coordinated to be back and forth commentary for us to be distracted by. Oh, they said this and he said this and then she countered with that and then he said that. That's what it's for. It's for drama. It's like Days of Our Lives, but bigger than that. Okay. It is. It's like Days of Our Lives over and over and over again every single day. And everyone gets caught up in the drama. They hate the villain and then they don't like the good guy and then the good guy's this and the bad guy's this. Has nothing to do with, these are script writers in the behind the scenes writing all this out. The actors just say what they're going to say. Good cop, bad cop. That's so true. That is so true. Antifa, does Antifa exist? It exists only because it's been script written. Are you kidding me? It's not the Antifa. Antifa is it's a controlled opposition. It's like ISIS. ISIS with their matching Toyota trucks and their matching white outfits that no one wears over there. That was all controlled. That was all controlled. So this person's calling me a con artist. Really? You're the one that can't see the fakery and I'm the con artist. Okay. All right. So when you expose the fakery of all things, you're not allowed to be in media, in any big time media. Okay. So I have to forego a career in media so I can tell the truth about what's happening. And when you tell the truth, you are slighted. You're like put into a different category, blacklisted in the media, paid for agitation. Yeah. So anyway, just laughing because there's so many comments on YouTube and stuff that are so funny. You guys got to read those. Anyways, I really appreciate you watching the show today, listening to the show today. And of course, I'll be back tomorrow. It's Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays now. And yeah, there's a lot of fake accounts also on and paid for accounts on YouTube and X. And so it's kind of funny when you start to poke at the fakery of all of it. People don't like that. See, the government tries really hard to get you into the tribal thinking. They do not want you thinking it's all fake. Because if you think it's all fake, you might not go along with all the stuff, right? Remember that Iran went along with COVID completely without even a comment about COVID. If you can get the world to go along with your master scheme called COVID, okay, the COVID lie, I think you're more bought and paid for than you think. So as far as Iran goes, do we control Iran? I think we have ever since the coup and the Shah. I think we have since we put in Khomeini. I think we have since, yes, I think we have 100% controlled Iran. I do. But people don't want to see that. They don't want to see it. So, because the media hasn't told them that, right? ABC News isn't telling you that. So therefore, right? Which is, I know it's tough, right? And, let's see this guy. Oh my gosh, this guy's such a dink. Oh, tell me you think COVID wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't, buddy. It was the flu. Oh, these people still think COVID was real. Okay. Well, the flu disappeared and then the flu came back after a year. Yeah, that's what happens in society. Love it. All right. People that can believe that, I just don't even know what to tell you. All right. I got oceanfront property in Arizona, though. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for listening in. Kate Daly Show, katedallyradio.com. Support the sponsors and really, really appreciate George's comment on there. Thank you. It's all fake. There's so much fakery going on. Please go to katedalleyradio.com, and I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Be faithful, be fearless. Find out why I say that, and I will see you tomorrow.